Sammy, welcome to you.
Pipe, you're just up and about because you finally got your credit card back out of the vending machine that you've been missing for the last 6 hours. You're a happy man now.
So I walked in here. First thing I wanted to do was get a Coke out of the vending machine. I did leave my credit card in there and didn't realise until I walked out and everybody in the office is eating salt and vinegar chips. So, I got it back.
I've never seen an empty vending machine like I have today.
No Snickers left.
Nothing.
It's an absolute steal in that vending machine. So if you're going to leave your credit card anywhere, there wouldn't have been too much damage.
They're cheap anyway, the chips in there.
Hey,
Absolutely.
$6.
They're very cheap. I wonder if Pat Lipinski will be cheap, though. So 12 months after Collingwood and the Western Bulldogs locked horns over that trade for Adam Treloar, the bell's ringing, ding, 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 on round 2. So the official confirmation of what we long knew yesterday, that Pat Lipinski wants to play for Collingwood. So he's out of contract. He's 23. That's the lay of the land. He's played 56 games in 5 years. We know the story. And after round 11 this year, was only picked as the Medi sub twice, once unused. So he'll sign a 3-year deal at Collingwood. He did have a 3-year deal on the table at the Dogs for months. So it's not about money. It's simply about opportunity. Now, this is where it gets interesting, though, guys, because the Pies have Nick Dacos coming in, we know, and they need picks. Now, at the moment, they've got 36, 39, 41 and 45 under the belt. So in an ideal world, they'd like to use a future pick on Lipinski, or would they be as bold and attempt to go as far as to get him through the pre-season draft? And would the Dogs even accept a future pick, keeping in mind they need picks too for their own father-son in the highly rated Sam Darcy? So the Dogs draft hand is even leaner. It's 17 and 72. They don't want future picks. They certainly don't want Pat Lipinski going to the pre-season draft. They want picks in the door now to match any bid on Darcy. So it all comes a year after the Pies, keep in mind, were forced to pay and are paying Adam Treloar $300,000 a season to play against them. $1.5 million over the course of 5 years. So that trade in the end had the Dogs giving up pick 14 and a future second for Treloar and picks 26, 33 and 42. It was an absolute steal for the Dogs. So who's going to win the sequel?
Oh, that's a deep discussion, isn't it? You feel like there's some angst there? There's some tension between the two clubs?
Well, I think the one thing the Dogs did do is they front-ended Adam Treloar when they didn't have to help the Pies out at the back end. So while they are forking out, on average, $300,000 a year for the 5 years, it will help them at the back end. That was the one thing the Dogs were willing to do. Everyone knew the script last year at Collingwood, so they were able to use that to maximum leverage. I'm not sure if there's ongoing bad blood, but they certainly locked horns hardcore at the time, and they're going to do it again for Pat Lipinski. They're going to drive a real hard bargain for the reasons I mentioned. It'll get done, of course it will, but how will it look at the end?
So take the positions of the points and all those sorts of things off the table for the moment, and even take the fact that there's some angst between these two clubs. What is Lipinski worth?
Well, he's a second rounder, isn't he?
He's a second rounder.
I would have thought so. So somewhere in the margins there of the second round pick, I think is fair. And look, Collingwood will say, hey, you hardly played this guy. But then the Dogs will say, and this is smart list management from Sam Power's team, well, we've got a 3-year offer on the table. And they probably gave him that 3-year offer. Okay, they were happy to have him there, but they knew that they could use that as leverage at the end. So this is how much we want him. We've given him 3 years. So this one could play out for a while, but he'll get to Craig McRae's Collingwood, I'm sure.
Can you walk him through? Would he get by the other teams? Would he get by the Kangaroos?
Think so.
He would?
I think so. I'm not sure. I can't answer specifically whether the Kangaroos have an interest in Pat Lipinski, but you find that clubs are wedded to certain players. They're tight in other areas. There's ways to structure. History says you could get it done, I would have thought, for a club like Collingwood and the pick they'll have in the pre-season draft. Hey, Pipe, Franco Cozzo put it best when he said, grand sale, grand sale, grand sale. Now, I'm not sure if he's opening up on the Gold Coast, but that's exactly what the Suns are telling clubs when it comes to their draft pick haul, because after the AFL deemed the Suns could and would get that end of first round compo pick, which is 19, as part of their ongoing assistance package, they've got now the Suns 3, 19, 22, 43, 55, 58, 66 and 76, despite the fact they've got a list at its absolute max at 38, given Malcolm Rosas is re-signing. So they've got to add 3 to their primary list as well via the draft or upgrading a rookie. They're the AFL rules. Marbiot Scholl's coming in as well, of course. So they're busy working behind the scenes, potentially moving players back down to the rookie list to make room for these picks that are on the table. So Collingwood, the Dogs, 2 clubs we've mentioned already this morning, perhaps Hawthorn, Essendon, clubs needing picks this year for father-sons or targeting the draft this year. Gold Coast, they're like Costco at the moment. They're just like the mass supermarket. You can go in there. They've got all the picks on the table for a bargain potentially. So Suns list boss Craig Cameron was on Trade Radio yesterday. He put that all on the table. He also said what we all suspect, and that is Will Brodie again. He's in the shop window as well for a trade if there's interest for him. Darcy McPherson, the father-son is the same. He's available for a trade. No interest in either of those two at this particular point, but they'll be relatively busy, the Suns, I reckon.
Gee, so how many players are actually up for grabs for those high-end selections? That's the hard part, isn't it? It's a buyer's market, isn't it?
Well, there'll be a pick swap, but when it comes to the Suns, I imagine there'll be futures going back the other way to Gold Coast, and they'll give up this year's draft. So, yeah, I mean, and players that are in limbo, there's a lot of those. So Will Brodie, Darcy McPherson, I just mentioned. There's a lot of players who are just going to have to be really patient, the Luke Dunstons of the world. And it's the same for poor old Charlie Constable at Geelong, who's living Groundhog Day down there at GMHBA Stadium for the second consecutive off-season. He's trying to get out of the club because he just wants to play the game week upon week. Yet at this stage, unless something changes for the better for him, he's going to have to hope he gets another deal at Geelong, a one-year deal like it was 12 months ago. Because at the moment, the interest just hasn't surfaced for him. He's almost trapped down there at Geelong. So no changes for Adam Cerra as well. We'll cover that one off. Still hasn't nominated a club. We still expect it to be Carlton, and then the real haggling begins. Dwayne, we know Melbourne's remained an interested party throughout here. They'd naturally be under some pressure salary cap-wise going forward as the Premier, but I'm told money-wise, certainly nothing insurmountable. It's more the draft pick exchange that makes it extremely difficult for Melbourne.